Since COVID-19, there have been an increase in work from home environments, but lately we are seeing some big investments from different companies on bringing back the office environment. So Chad and I got together and we decided to look into the pros, cons of both office and work from home, what it's looking like businesses are trending towards these next 5 years, and how St. Louis is following. This is Intellectually. My name is Robert.
I'm Chad.
This is the show where we teach you how to hold us, the professionals, more accountable in real estate. Let's talk about it. All right, get going. So we organized it in 3 ways. We want to review the pros of both the office environment strictly and pros of both of the work from home environment, and then we do the cons of both. And then we wanted to dig into where we are seeing companies attempting to trend, whether it's both of them, one of them. And then we wanted to put our own partake into St. Louis's method of following along, what they have going on. And this is more of I would argue, a commercial real estate environment. Chad did bring up a point, though, that we probably should focus on a different show, of how this might help a residential home purchaser really analyze their environment. But today we're going to focus more on details, ideas, and mentalities of a business owner, and whether or not they really should proactively calculate if commercial real estate is in their, best interest. Did I get it all right? Just about?
Yeah.
Cool. I like it. So, take it away. I mean, what would you say? You did more of the research, which I'm just tremendously grateful for because my week was packed. What kind of stats did we find when we started researching it? Because in the beginning, the conversation we had was more about how we had a theory that work in office increases pride, right?
Correct.
And your statistics are showing a lot of things that might combat our personal opinion, right?
That is correct.
And I guess I'll point out this as an idea. We had this mentality that, I completely understand that somebody might have pride in a company that gives them the liberties of working from home. But we were talking about that undermining stigma of when a company wants you and needs you, they're going to want you around to get as much of your contribution as they can because they tremendously value you, right? Now, that being said, do they trust you? Do they not trust you? Do they believe that you can still contribute that value when you work from home? Those are things that we were kind of combating, and we went down a huge rabbit hole. Chad's fiance works from home for a company. We believe she's a big outlier because, irrelevant of what she does, she's a pretty hard worker. So she's been productive and successful in her area. But we were just asking the question, like, if a company offered her, a large windowed office overlooking the city, maybe a pay structure increase, would it increase her pride? Would she take it? These are all questions that we were thinking about, and how does that contribute to the normal individual?
Yeah, so I think right now we're sitting at about 67% of the companies working it within a hybrid remote / in-office work.
Okay.
22% that we know are fully remote, and then the remaining is fully in office. Right?
Okay. Remember, speaking the mic, just in case.
Yes. So it's a big, fairly
Speaking the mic, Chad.
large change.
So repeat that. So the statistic that you found was what?
Currently, right now, there's 22% of the companies that are fully remote.
Yep.
22 to 23.
Wow. You'd think it'd be higher.
Right.
22% of the companies, but I guess in retail, which is the leading source of any work industry.
Correct. And then you have 22% you have 67% that are fully hybrid. So 22% of the companies are fully remote.
Fully remote. Okay. Then we got 67% that are hybrid.
And then the remaining are fully in office.
Okay. Never mind then. So it's not a surprising statistic. that actually lines up with what we're seeing everywhere, right?
Correct.
You obviously got the majority of your work in office. I'm assuming that statistic is counting retail. So you're talking like Walmart, Best Buy, clothing stores, mobile stores. All those individuals can't work from home if they're selling and managing an at-store
Correct.
console. Do you? I guess we should probably look into it, or we'll leave it to our viewers to look into those details a little bit deeper. But I wonder if they're including those individuals because we're using the keyword office.
There has been a lot of
Chaos.
but
During your
again, inaccurate information on the types of companies and whatnot that have
Yeah.
been ingrained in these surveys and these statistics. But as of right now, from what I was able to find, again,
And what was that source? That was according to.
that source, I'm trying to figure out because I had this all written down. And
It's
then
okay.
I
We'll come back
deleted
to
all
it.
of
Hannah, if you could
for
find
some
that
reason.
source for us, we will keep moving and we'll come back to that source.
So going
So-
back to the benefits,
Well,
you know,
if you could find the source, Hannah, Chad said, what were the statistics real quick?
it was 67% of companies that were hybrid.
Yep.
22% were fully remote, which is actually down
Yeah.
about, I believe it was 0.4% from 2021, 2022,
Yep.
pre-pandemic levels. So there hasn't been a huge change in the amount of companies that are fully remote.
Yeah.
There's actually been a slight decrease of that.
That makes sense,
Correct.
right? You could come
And
back
then the
to
remaining,
office.
again,
Yeah.
all in-house, all in office.
Mm-hmm.
As far as some of the benefits, then these are all done through surveys. This specific survey done through Strong DM stated that 97% of employees want to continue to work fully remote until they retire.
That makes sense. You know.
And then that same 97% would recommend remote work to all of their friends and family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more control, more environment.
Exactly.
What else?
79% of remote workers say they would be more loyal if an employer allowed flexibility, which is
Okay.
funny, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean,
What
let's get
loyalty
into it
actually-
right now. What do you mean by
So 97% of workers, done by a survey done by Strong DM, they stated that if they would be more loyal to a company that offered them more flexibility within their work-life balance
Yeah.
than a company that would not, which
Yeah.
is
Well, we talked about the idea, right? Individuals. I personally would argue it's not the, and this goes like right now we're trying to really grasp the idea of business owner. Should I invest money into real estate to house my employees? Am I going to get more return? That's obviously the question that we're trying to answer. Or am I going to get more return literally by saving money and sending them home? And another thing we could probably open up a whole podcast we won't get into is the statistics of the amount that these companies are spending on softwares, you know, and accountability processes over there. How much are they spending on, you know, maybe the materials that they have to provide to these team members? Are they
how much are they spending on turnover?
how much are they spending on turnover, e-shops, you know, and extracurricular HR things, mental health because you're lonely, you know, all these things, extra costs that might not come into the stats. That's something we can look into.
So, again, according to another survey done by the Global Workplace Analytics, it stated that 60% of employers identify remote work that they identified that remote work offers a cost savings benefit,
Yeah.
saving an estimated $11,000 per year per employee. You know, that's
This
through
is-
rent, utilities, you know,
Yeah.
anything associated with the cost of owning a
Yeah.
building or having a building, an office space.
And that's a no-brainer, right? I mean, you're saving so much. It's not that that's the instant answer though. You're like, cool, I'll save $1,100. Everybody knows from every Disney movie they see, every Hollywood movie they see, it's not about the savings, it's about the investment and the return you get from that investment. You know, the other saying is, you know, if you want happier customers, make happier employees. But then we also know we are the worst ambassadors for our own well-being, right? So we have this mentality that we're like, I want work from home. That sounds great, but can I discipline myself to get what I need done? And am I going to slowly shrivel up mentally if I'm in home all day? There's a whole nother idea to think about, you know. separating work from home. Just looking forward to going home is now losing it. And then the environment of collaboration, which you have a lot of statistics on when it comes to team members, being able to go to work and talk to your friend, your colleague about what happened yesterday can get repetitive, but also can be something nice. Hannah, you brought up one of the biggest things you miss about your previous industry is you're like, I loved the collaboration between your colleagues, right?
Collaboration, yeah, between, your team, your employees, and then just kind of that break in the day where you can take a second, crack a joke, talk about something from your personal life. You're constantly going in, seeing people talking, having social interaction, which is important, versus if you're working from home. That's why I like to go to coffee shops a lot, to just be surrounded by people. So
it's interesting enough because since pre-pandemic levels, fully remote work jobs makes up now 15% of all the opportunities out there, where it was about 4% before pre-pandemic levels. So we've seen it triple over the past 5-6 years of just the amount of opportunities that are out there who are fully remote.
And you sent me a video that's affecting new graduates' ability to get jobs. Statistics were showing it was the Federal Reserve that released it. Is that correct?
And we'll get into that
And
as
I'll
we
hold
get into
back
the trends. But yes, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, so you got statistics. Hold that, put a pin on that idea because we'll reapproach it. But there's just like the mentality. I think the biggest question to be answered as a business owner, right? What kind of return for the investment of paying for this real estate could I get? Should I get? And is there a way to gauge it?
So that survey, that Stanford survey that you and I looked at, it stated that fully remote employees on average are 13% more productive than their in-office counterparts.
Yep.
But that's on individual task completion, driven primarily by fewer interruptions, no commute fatigue, and greater control over their environment.
Yep.
So in essence,
no commute fatigue is a pretty crazy one.
No
which is
commute
cool.
fatigue.
Yeah.
But another interesting stat that I saw was, let me find it here, was that it actually took roughly, I think, a little bit less than 30% longer for these new employees or these new remote employees to actually get to that level where they're being fully productive.
So if you're
are
talking,
they being more productive?
Yeah.
Yes, in essence. But the idea is, how long is it taking them to get to that level?
And that's a big deal, right? If you're talking a year, that's 365 days. You're talking 465 days for the other team members. So if you're a company that wants to dominate an industry, where do I draw the line between sacrificing that work from home environment that's being coveted and still maintaining company morale, but alleviating that extra 100 days versus the year of prep and readiness, right?
Yeah. So
if you want an efficient team member working, keep going.
So obviously, let's really get into the reason why people want to have remote work, right? Work-life balance, flexibility. They want control over their own time, right? Gives them more of a work-life balance. And I think, especially now since pre-pandemic lows, that's a very, very
So let's talk about the idea
incentivized-
of work-life balance.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Define your opinion of what a work-life balance is.
I think we'll start with the basics, right?
Yeah.
No commute, right? You're not having to drive, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 30 minutes. You're not having to drive to and from the office.
Yeah, I want to just approach the definition of the word work-life balance. Irrelevant to this conversation, I just want, if you don't mind, what would you two say?
I mean, you have work and you have life, right? So if you're going to a job where you have to physically clock in by 9 and then you physically clock out by 5, you can't do life in between that time.
Touche. Okay.
Right? So that's kind of how I look at it.
What would you say?
I mean, beyond having to be in the office, right?
Yeah.
And not being able to do life, in between being in the office, is you have more options to be where you want to be.
Yeah.
If you have a fully remote job, you don't have to be in the city that you're working. You don't have to be
That's
in the
fair.
state that you're working in, right? It gives you the flexibility to work from wherever you want, and if you're still productive and you can put your head down and focus on the work that you need to do,
Yeah.
You have one of the
It's
greatest
like-
benefit of the world in the world to be able to have, in essence, some freedom.
Agreed. And I like your mentality there. You were going to say something?
Well, I was gonna say, like, for example, you have to make a doctor's appointment. I have to request time to do that at an office job. Whereas if I work remote, you know, I can schedule that around my day. Now, I don't know how that goes though for people who actually have to be logged in to a system. And you know how people will be like, they'll move their mouse to show that
We
they're
have,
still
we have a
active.
friend, like, she has to log in and she
Yeah.
has to show production to the point where she was like, I can't go to the park and work with you guys
Yeah.
because it might intervene.
So if that was the case, something like
So-
a doctor's appointment might
Is that
still not
actually work
out.
from home, right?
But I'm
That's
just saying,
Actually,
like,
very interesting that you brought that up because
Yeah.
not really to counter your point, but another statistic by Strong DM shown that 70% of employees, remote working or fully remote employees, worked while they were ill,
Yeah. Makes sense.
which
'cause
does
you can
make
work
sense.
from bed.
Especially with COVID-19, it proved that, like,
So you're getting
people-
fewer absence, fewer unexpected call outs for those who do work in the office because again, you get sick. You got to go to the office. You don't want to get other people sick. You got to go to your doctor's appointment, whatever the case is. Where
Yep.
a lot of these employees are actually a little bit more flexible and they will work when they're not feeling good.
Yeah. No, I get you. And it's not that they're like, they won't work or will work when they're feeling good because they want to work. It's just like, they're like, I'll get it done. I'll clock in. I'll get these hours. And there's also probably a statistic that nobody will be able to discover, at least right now, unless we really impede on privacy. And that's the fact that, like it or not, a lot of these hours that people are clocking are BS, right? I mean, how many hours did you clock in? I clocked in at 40 last week. How many times did you clock in and then, relax, finish the news, finish your coffee, finish your breakfast, do this stuff? You read a statistic what was the statistic around people that work from home work more hours, you said?
Yeah, it was noted that they work about 1 to 2 more hours a week.
Which is crazy.
Or even like 4, because the idea, going back to the point is, all right, I got a little bit of time for lunch. I'm not going to push this off. But then again, it might be 8, 9 o'clock. You're getting that work done. Or it might be Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
You're getting that work done still.
And you're saving the production of, like, I used to have to get up at 8 to drive to work and be there by 9. Now I can get up at 8, drink some coffee, start work by 8:30, right? So you're gaining those extra hours. In regard to it, though, if they're working more hours, it also could lead to the idea of, like, when we're not being held accountable, we procrastinate more. And when we finally get held accountable for our lack of work, they might make us work more to complete it. Thus, the 4 hours, right, that I had to work following up. Because, like it or not, I love this mentality where people are on the hunt to do what they love. If you did what you love, it wouldn't be called work. And the closer you are to doing what you love, the less you're going to get paid, because the less that word work is meaning anything, right?
Well, and that kind of brings it back to the idea of loyalty, right? That survey that says 79% of remote workers said they would be more loyal if the employer allowed flexibility. And you and I were discussing this before. Is that truly loyalty?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The flexibility is, we'd prefer not to be told what to do than get either one. So it's, we got employees that have the option to go into work and the option to work from home, and they utilize both. That could increase loyalty just through the fact that you have these options. But loyalty itself, I think, comes from a contribution and a receival, or at least the ability to admire what you put into it, right? So you brought up another statistic there, right? Or I don't know if there was a specific number that showed just kind of the support of the idea that people are more likely to be loyal because they can see their return, or was that just an opinion you made?
That wasn't an opinion, more of an
Observation.
An observation. But
That makes sense.
the idea was that remote work has really, in some ways, insinuated a very big gap between the expectations of performance between leadership and management and the actual employees, right?
Yeah.
Remote work is, in a lot of ways, it has decreased employee engagement, right, within the company itself, right? So in my eyes, it's turned to that these remote workers are viewing that their duties and their performance and expectations more as transactional. They're not really engulfed or looking into the bigger picture of it. While the more engaged individuals that are still fully remote work, they look at it differently, right? They see the contribution that they're making, and they see the bigger picture, and they see that the efforts that they are contributing to offer some sort of value in other ways of rather than just completing tasks.
And it's also like a lot can be said to just experiencing another's opinion versus hearing another's opinion, right? We talked about the idea that a study showed why we pace back and forth while we talk on the phone. It's because our bodies are frustrated and we're nervous because we aren't able to experience the other sensories that we, get traditionally on a face-to-face conversation. What are we missing there that we haven't been able to analyze when we remove face-to-face community, any form of kind of fellowship in a progressive interaction, right? One of the big things when training team members, for example, underneath me, I'd approach them in the mentality of, if they're struggling in a technique or something like that, I've never seen success when I've seen leaders come to them and say, all right, where are you struggling in? What can I do to help you? In my eyes, that's just fluff. There's pointless. You're talking at the individual. But if you were to say, hey, sell me this product, go through this process for me, show me this, you're going to identify the opportunities that individual would have never been able to recognize. And it's, common statistics. If somebody's struggling in something, likeliest of them being able to identify the reason for their struggle is very low, or they wouldn't be struggling in it, right? So that being said, why am I saying all that? What are we missing when we're just sitting there mentoring an individual face to face and experiencing these little techniques that you wouldn't experience if you were remote from one another? And that goes to, the support of some of your statistics on the growth mentorship, 30% longer to get to where they need to be. And what is that stat of where they need to be? You know?
And that's a great point. 600 employee survey show from Robin Powered that 35% would be more motivated if they knew their manager was around.
Yeah.
31% would want to come in if they knew their colleagues would be there. 73% would have more pride in the company if they saw their colleagues in office.
Agreed. 100%. So, it's just like that camaraderie is motivating and it's identifying in areas that we wouldn't even realize.
It's really funny because it's conflicting, because a lot of these surveys and stats show that they want this engagement with their colleagues. They want
the community.
The community there. But another interesting thing is, studies are showing that people are willing to give up to 10% of their income to have the option just to stay fully remote.
I forget where I saw this study. It was another podcast. They were talking about just people, how they act when they feel like they're being watched. And they had like a place that was selling retail items, and they were like, put the money in the box to pay for the item. And they noticed they got less money when the box displayed a picture of a sky and some birds. And they actually got more money in the box for when they changed out the picture to 2 eyes, right? So it's just like people produce and they get more done when they feel like they're being monitored. I know I do, right? If I was just sitting there relaxing, even an individual around me, I'm going to sit up straight. I'm going to be working more. I'm going to be more focused versus just slacking off, not doing anything if I'm not being held accountable, right? But it goes back to the question of if I am to get this response and these results, is it going to be higher than the money that I'm putting in to provide these facilities, provide these materials? Because not only is it facilities that you're providing for your employees, it's also, you need computers there, you need desks there, you need, chairs. You need to have that place cleaned. It needs to be upkept. There's a lot in providing these areas. And you and I have talked about it ourselves when opening up our own office. We're just like, is the return for the pride our employees experience and the confidence our clientele experiences from seeing a representing building worth the money we have to pay to keep that there, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges any business owner is going to face.
And I think that's in some ways coming to our realization that that is actually one of the least important reasons why companies decide to do that, right? Of course, cost savings, but
Yeah.
according to this market survey by SPS Global, they asked executives, in your review, what is the most reliable indicator that the workplace investment is delivering an ROI? At the bottom of the list was reduced operational and real estate costs. You want to know what the number one
What?
was? Better talent attraction and recruitment success.
And that makes sense because you brought in your horizon and
Why?
well, you don't have to have them drive to a facility, right? You're broadening your horizon on that retrospect. Better talent though. There's things that I don't think we have the ability to produce proper numbers. Over the past 5 years, we've had, I wouldn't even say it's technological development, but we've had technological efficiency developments, if that makes sense. We haven't come out with a new wheel, right? We haven't reinvented the wheel. We aren't like producing some new brand and technological doctrine. But with AI, with softwares like CRMs and proactive procedures, how quickly and readily available communication is between all individuals has tremendously improved over the past, let's say 7 years. So that being said, we're looking at these statistics and we're like, work from home is producing more. You're like, I don't know about that, man. Like, AI is also producing more. When does that contribute to the statistics that you're coming up with? CRMs was a huge investment. And like everybody knows the name Salesforce, which is one of the leading CRMs. And if you don't, you know a CRM name and you probably don't even realize it. But these are customer relationship managers that are coordinated to organize and make things more efficient. All these things since 2020 have been efficient, added efficiency to what is known as the traditional work environment tremendously versus say 2010, 2005 or 15, where we were still trying to get our bearings on how this economy works, right? But now, like, we're cruising. You log in, you sit down, you press a button. It opens up everything. It's pretty colors. It's inviting. It's knowledgeable. But as well, it's easy to use. You can sit down, use a laptop anywhere. The speed of internet is tremendous. It's not everybody's got a gig in their house. That's unheard of 10 years ago. That's unheard of, well, we'll say 15 years ago in 2010, right? I remember, sitting there. Now obviously this is unrealistic, but I can go all the way back to the days where I'd have to tell somebody to get off the phone so I can log into dial-up internet. And then we get to the next level where Steve Jobs takes a laptop out of a piece of paper type pamphlet to show how thin it is, and that laptop is outperformed by this phone that fits in my pocket now. So it's like all these stats we're seeing, we're like, oh, is work from home more productive?
And it's funny because there are stats that support that, but then when you really dig into it and realize, you do more research and realize that about a quarter of these companies that you're getting this information from, they don't even know.
They don't know. They don't have the proper metrics. I'd love to see where we're at 10 years from now when we actually can start to evaluate. COVID-19 changed our ability to hold statistics because people were forced to go home and forced to work there. And technological developments were forced to amplify production in CRMs, AI production. All these different things were elevated and accelerated. So to say that, working from home is the better route, it's impossible to say because our numbers are skewed through technological development and COVID-19 forcing everybody to work from home. I still am holding strong to the theory that there's an unestablished statistic of mental capacity, absorption, and just some daunting unidentified level of morale and pride in what you're doing in a professional atmosphere. I mean, even sitting here in this room, I feel claustrophobic and I want to go outside, right? I want to just break out and do something. And those individuals, I don't think with this current mentality of you have to work from home is being rewarded, right? I'll let you keep going, but it's just, I take all these numbers with a grain of salt is all I would say.
Yeah. I mean, so here's obviously what we know. Remote jobs make up about 15% of the opportunities right now. Majority of people would prefer to work from home, right? But some of the stats, again, that we're seeing is the drop in level of employee engagement, right? Loyalty and engagement and within what they are actually doing, right?
Yeah.
How many people are constantly looking for another job every single day?
Yeah.
Right.
And there is also, we could go down a rabbit hole with that, but the opportunity for income is far, I guess, broad now, right? I could work here or I could leave there instantly and make $200 at night on Grubhub, or I could make something else that next day on Instacart or Uber or something like that. It's not like the limitations that we, weren't available for.
And this
10 years ago.
This is why, in some ways, why we're seeing the unemployment rate for new grads that just went up about 20%.
So what was that statistic?
They went from, and this is what from Fox News, it was 3.1% all the way up to 3.7%. So 20% increase in new college grads for unemployment.
Okay.
Right? And the idea behind that,
well, the statistic
it could be a
also
lot of
versus
ideas.
older graduates, they were getting jobs, correct?
Correct.
And you said something about experience. Can you
correct,
elaborate on
because
that?
companies, because they have because of, going back to the stat that new employees take roughly 30% longer to train.
You want somebody with experience.
And I think companies are understanding the difficulty in mentoring and growing their own employees.
Starting to discover the return for that.
Within a remote environment, that they'd much rather go out and hire an experienced employee that already knows how to do the job, and they don't have to give them a lot of mentoring training, rather than spend more time on a younger college grad who, in a lot of cases, and looked at as not loyal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We always talk about when you switch jobs, you're taking a demotion, even if you're getting more money and better environment. Like it or not, your previous job you're leaving, they know your name. That's in like going to a new environment. They don't know who you are. You have less weight. So like it or not,
And on
strongly
the flip side,
say you're taking a demotion.
You and I both know, understand the cost of backfilling and hiring for a position.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It could cost almost 4 times the amount of what you're paying that individual. So turnover actually ends up being way more expensive for the companies itself. Yeah, it can be.
Can be. There's obviously other companies that are paying individuals that have been around for quite a long time, and they might lose that individual, hire a new individual on to take their place. That individual may be more tech savvy and fill in the gaps, but also take a lower pay because they don't have the seniority. So it could be in the long run beneficial. There's back and forth there.
So we obviously know that remote work is desired, but it has its own issues. In-office work is being less and less desired by your average individual, but we also understand the benefits that
and the
come
value behind it
with being there. So
predominantly because of mentorship and community. Remote work is because just more statistical, driving to work, freedom of choice. Keep going. Where's the world trending?
Where are we trending? Where is the world going? Well, the answer is hybrid work.
That's where everybody's aiming, huh?
Correct.
So what do we got? I guess I'll say this while you're pulling up these stats. We've attended in the past 2 weeks, network events that were hosted by office rental buildings. And their objective was to get people to meet and greet on that motivation of that's why you would come. But their motivation was to get you into their office facility and say, hey, if you're interested in renting an office, if you're interested in using an office here and there, then reach out to us. And they were talking to us about the idea like more expensive for an office with a window overlooking the city, if you want your name on the door, stuff like that. And I see that value and that motive behind these companies because we're having a huge increase in small businesses, single business owners trying to manage and relate with their clients individually. And there's a pride and a confidence behind saying, meet me at my office, and showing up and your logo's on the door. And there's a nice window behind you as you're talking with this potential client. I would argue that's going to establish more confidence from your client's eyes, and it's going to establish more pride from the business owner's eyes. So that's obviously a motivation for these individuals.
And actually interesting to that point, I don't have the specific stats, but I was reading that a lot of newer companies that were born 2015 and after, they did a study on the age of the CEO and the amount of remote work that company allows. And they said there was a majority that newer businesses within the past 10 years and CEOs under the age of 30 to 35 had a significant amount of remote work opportunities. So you can see as these corporations and these CEOs and these leaders are getting younger, they're doing exactly what you're saying. They're trying to, correlate with their individuals that they're working with, right? That work for them, and they're in some ways trying to change the way that we work.
Yep. And there's, if you look into the statistics of remote work overseas, we're talking more United States statistics. Statistics can go crazy in other countries. We won't even get into that right now. But it is cool. The small business owner growth in the United States is tremendous. And I would argue a small business owner is coveting an in-office environment more than a business employee that still has accountabilities. Right? When you're a small business owner, Hannah, you'll probably back me up. Now that you manage your time, it's a little bit more draining to motivate. And you're like, I'd love to just have to go in at 9 o'clock once in a while and have somebody ready there to tell me what to do. That's a big luxury if you think about it, and you miss it, don't know what you got till it's gone mentality. But so these small business owners are just craving that environment maybe. So be forcing yourself out the door, go to an office with your name on the door is tremendous value just for your motivation to work in general, especially when there's nobody else holding you accountable. So I see the value there. What other investments are you seeing the world's taking in this office environment?
So referencing the Microsoft 2025 workplace trends, it states that employees in a structured hybrid arrangement, meaning defined office days with clear expectations rather than vague flexibility, reported a 23% higher focus score than those in either fully remote or fully in office.
Yep. I like
right?
it.
So these companies aren't just telling you have to be in the office 1 day a week, 2 days a week. No, they're structuring it, giving you clear expectations. No, we expect you here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
We have a friend, he is actually looking to purchase a condo. But he has the ability to work from home 3 days a week. He goes in almost every day because he's like, I don't want to turn my home into work. That's his place to go.
So it feels like, again, we're finding this sweet spot between the best of both worlds, right?
Well, I wanted to bring this statistic up. You cool with that?
Yeah. I mean, I have. Yeah.
Is it on there? Or just like kind of supporting St. Louis, and we're jumping the gun with where the world's going. But obviously St. Louis business owners are also looking into this. One of the things that motivated and fueled this conversation on where St. Louis is at is new and found moving forward with $30 million office development at City Foundry, right? So the City Foundry, new and found, is building from the ground up. They're investing $30 million into an office building. And it's kind of crazy to think about that with all these different office buildings that need that are empty. In the city of St. Louis, there's so many office buildings that are empty. Why are they resorting to building something anew versus just taking on one of these other buildings? And what I've found is it is more costly and time consuming to go into these outdated areas versus just starting afresh, right?
Well,
Start afresh.
What is one of the biggest costs you have to do? You got to take the
Tear-
existing building
yeah,
down.
Tearing it down.
You know,
So,
not only is that expensive, but that takes a long time.
yep. And on top of that, insuring these buildings could be more expensive. You said, what were they building this $30 million project out of?
It's a mass timber structure.
Yeah, mass timbers. So it's like kind of like a treated wood. Don't hold me to that. I'm a real estate agent, not a contractor. But the mentality behind it is they found a cheaper method to build these buildings. And if
That and cheaper method, and it's
Cheaper to
quicker.
insure.
It's about 20 to 25% faster.
yep, cheaper to
build.
insure, I can imagine. Don't hold me to that.
And
but
I
can,
actually think one of the most important underlying ones of all that is they said it reduces about 90% of the construction traffic in the area.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting because they're like almost modular. They build portions of these structures first, and then they go in and they set them up like
Yep.
Legos or Connects or whatever.
So we got the Millennium Hotel, for example. That is designated to be torn down, and they said they'd be finishing the tear down by late 2027, right? While they're still tearing down, this office is going to be putting the lights in, right? So that's another thing to just think about. These buildings are older, they're thicker, they're it's harder. You're like, that's a big beam I got to figure out what to do with, right? Versus clear landscape. And then there's also just the mentality. When we're brainstorming, I'm like, all right, Chad, open up a brand new page. Let's start afresh. Now that we got all this chaos in our heads, now let's try to organize it on paper. So sometimes, it's nice to just start afresh. And so that's one statistic that we found very cool. They're investing $30 million into office buildings in an area that they see is trending with apartment buildings, commerce, and things like that.
And we are one of the states with the lowest appropriation of remote workers to non-remote workers.
Elaborate.
So we have one of the lowest amount of fully remote workers in the country by state, as far as
Interesting.
leading the map is Colorado, states like Colorado, Washington, Maryland, Arizona, and Oregon, which are all floating around 19 to 21% fully remote workers.
Yeah.
Missouri's at 12.9, just
Okay.
under 13.
Yeah.
So it's
So I mean, we're either we're behind when it comes to remote work, or we're like, hey, maybe remote work shouldn't be as heavily invested in, right? Or who knows? Maybe we'll become a giant data center. Yeah.
who knows?
Just the entire city.
Who
Can you
knows?
imagine data center cities? You wake up and it's the Matrix. And,
I mean, that brings up another good point is, if companies are going to make the decision to do hybrid or get more office space or continue this trend, right?
how do you go about that?
How do you go about it? And St. Louis actually turns out to be one of the best cities.
Not surprising.
In the country, to
Especially the
have that
downtown area.
opportunity.
The stigma in the downtown area is a huge investment opportunity itself, right? Prices are going to be a little bit lower. I'm telling you, prices are going to shoot up in the next couple of years. You want to make a move, make it now into downtown. But that being said, you're right.
I mean, yeah, St. Louis has had its first positive absorption with the office space in 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen a lot of these other.
Are we
cities-
getting Bonnie on video? She's just super annoying. And Hannah's doing a great job keeping her down. Sorry to cut you off, Chad,
No, it's all
but
good.
she's just annoying and needy.
We're one of the very few that have positive absorption
Yeah.
in this office space area. Our vacancy rate is lower than your average.
Yep. But so here's a question that pops in my head that I'm sure a lot of business owners are like, what route should I take? Should I lease an entire office area? Should I do this kind of go through a conduit building owner where I can rent out a space that is shared with other people? And or should I literally purchase my own building? Now, obviously, you and me, we're in the industry where we're going to be most motivated to purchase it. But I don't blame somebody for not wanting to open up that can of worms. I don't want to build a website from the ground up, and a website builder would be like, no, we're making our own website, right? So it's just that mentality. What should you do? The most expensive is going to be going through a conduit, where these companies cater, fill the fridge for you, provide extra amenities, and it's going to also be more time costly, I would argue. You saw a statistic that employees, studies show that, and I don't, you don't have it written down, but employees spend an average of 20 to 30 minutes setting themselves up when they get in there. So you drove a half hour to this location, and then you spent another half hour. You're finally working in an hour, right? And but yeah, so that's the mentality
Which
behind
is also
it.
funny because, I live with a fully remote
Worker.
employee.
Well, she's
worker,
fully remote, but
my
she doesn't.
fiance.
Yeah.
She's not productive every single waking moment that she's
Of course not.
on the clock. You know
No,
what I
of course
mean?
not.
She's got a lot more breaks in between, so it's almost like you just picking which time you're
Her
doing
boss
what.
is watching this. Like, really?
Yeah. Well, she's really good at her job, so I don't think her bosses care.
We'll find out.
And it's just interesting, and we can really see that, there will always be companies and businesses that will have fully in-office support because you need that. Again, your retail environments, your, whatever you want to think of. But we are seeing a huge trend going towards a mixed hybrid and remote work. Giving employees their flexibility, but also at the same time, making sure that they're engaged, making sure that they're getting proper mentorship, making sure that they are understanding their purpose of why they're doing what they're doing.
I always thought, because I would argue I'm good at what I do, but I just can't imagine what I would have been like if I had an individual as motivated as I was as a mentor, right? I've had great mentors, but I mean like in this industry, particularly somebody just focused on me, and you can't get that in a work from home environment, right? One final thought to contribute to this mentality is this, right? If you are looking at purchasing or leasing a building under the accountability of your company or yourself, it's very important to connect with an experienced real estate agent that has worked in commercial. It's also very important to analyze the other individuals that will be involved in the party, right? If you're looking at rehauling the internals or externals of this building, an architect is important, a code instructor is important for them to identify what kind of building you'll be bringing in there. The real estate agent needs to understand and identify how to coordinate all these things and demand certain points on the lease and be able to communicate and negotiate those points on the lease. It's also important to recognize what kind of landlords you're getting into bed with, right? Go to the other facilities and ask them, what are your pain points? What has gone down? And finally, the big cost tickets, don't let your landlord tell you what to do with those. Things like HVAC, things like construction or extra utilities. If it's a triple net lease, negotiate properly. Don't be bullied by landlords who are ready and prepared for those conversations, and you might not be. Once again, it's important to have an experienced real estate agent there. And if you're looking at buying a property, it's also very important to value those things, right? If you have to get into HVAC, it's far more costly when it comes to commercial. If you have to get into anything really, because of the code and the permits pulled on a commercial atmosphere, the costs go up. So understand those costs when it comes to what amount you're actually willing to pay to open up this business. And then finally, if you're looking at going through these conduits, the catered service is not a necessity. It's a convenience. So if you're in the mentality where you're like, man, that sounds fun to be able to go in and have a nice window, have my name on the door, and go out to a kitchen and have ready and available coffee, foods, and snacks, and you're just doing it because it's fun, I recommend you reevaluate your investment as a business owner. Now, if you're like, I'm a killer in the industry, or I'm a dominator in the industry, and I do better when I do what I do best so I can pay others to do what they do best, then it's realistic to have this catered mentality. That's kind of like a closing idea. Does that make sense?
And for you professionals, especially you young professionals, please consider your options and do not put so much weight on the idea of fully remote work. Because while there are benefits, right, understand, especially being young, that there are also a lot of correlations with the mental health declining within being fully remote work. They're saying that there's a fully remote individual experiences 58% rise in hours spent alone. And especially if you live alone, they're saying 72% chance of spending your whole day without any human contact. We're humans, guys. You know, social
need
interaction
community,
and, you know, engagement with your peers and your individuals. It's so important.
Yep.
Right. And it can truly affect mental health if you're not forwardly thinking. So think about everything that encompasses working from home rather than the fact that you don't have to get up and go into the office at 9 a.m. every
Touche.
day.
You're right.
Right.
And it's also like business owners. Think about when you are trying to compete in an environment and you're like, if I offer work from home, I'll save money and people will think I'm a cool company. Really, are you a cool company, or are you going to be, if you're trying to bring in people that want that mentorship, want to do amazing and grow in the industry very fast, are you taking that possibility away from them by making them work from home and only giving them that opportunity? But I'll let you say it, and then I'm down to close down. What were you going to say?
I'm good.
Oh, brilliant. What time did we get?
Perfect.
Good timing.
What is it?
50 minutes.
Jeez. 50 minutes?
You're about
That's
to hit
hilarious.
51.
I know. Well, guys, this was Intellectually. My name is Robert.
I'm Chad.
You already know what it's going on, so we'll catch you guys
You
next
already
week.
know what it do.